Zoom. Here we go. We're slowly. I can't see you, but I hear you, so that's good. Uh, Here we go. My market district pickup is ready tonight. Okay, good. My kids keep stealing everything from me. Okay, here we go. That is running. That is closed. Okay, and we go like this, and that's working. And let's see what else is working today. My Wi-Fi, I'm using my hotspot. I'm spotlighting. Oh, there I am, but I'm gonna go to, okay, gallery for a second. I see Mark's dog. Okay, and I see mom and dad. Where did I see mom and dad in Arizona? It's at 12 noon there, right, Dad? Is it 12 o'clock there or 2 or 1 o'clock? 12? Yeah. Welcome, mom and dad. Okay. And let's see, I'm going to start muting everyone. Okay. Alt M. Okay. And then I'm going to look at my settings for a second. Mute participants on entry. You are allowed to unmute yourself if you behave. And the way you unmute yourself is you hold down your space bar. That's the easiest way. You talk and then you let go of your space bar and you stop talking like a CB. You're allowed to rename yourselves. If you want us to know who you are when you speak, you get to press that little button that's somewhere on your screen that says rename. As long as you're not my ninth graders and don't say anything bad, you're okay. Okay, that's a little frustrating when they start renaming themselves bad words. My virtual background is books. Okay, that'll count for today. And let me check my video settings, make sure that I can see non-video participants. So far, so good. Okay, I look pretty good. I'm going to now spotlight speaker view. If you don't want to see me so big, go into gallery view, and then I'm just one of those squares. If you're in speaker view, I'll be big, and there'll be a few other boxes on your screen. If you want to raise your hand, you'll have to go down virtually. You go down to where it says manage participants, where it says manage participants 24. You click on that, and you'll see on the bottom of your managed participants, hand raise, and you can raise your hand and ask a question. You can also send me a question through chat. If you do chat, don't worry, no one else can see it, so you can't send anything bad. But if you go to the bottom where it says chat, you can actually send me a question, and then I can act like I don't know who sent it. I'm going to now get ready to not share my screen, but I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to go to gallery for a second. I am now looking at my document. Can you tell that I'm looking at my document? I'm going to unmute you for a second here. It's going to get loud. Can you tell that? Did your screen change just now? Because I'm looking, or can you not tell anything like I'm looking at the document?
Mine is the
Good.
same.
Looks the same. Good. Now I'm muting you again. There we go. So here we go. Let me get back to spotlight view. Good. Let me get back to speaker view, and we are kosher. We're getting started. Thank you for joining our new series, Tough Questions. It's the topic for today is the Torah fake news. Is any of it true? My son Miles says no. Okay, so that would have been a very short class. And what we have is where do I get this from? Amy and I were always looking for new topics and programs. There's more coming. Don't worry. We're going to keep you busy. And what this is from a book called Tough Questions Jews Ask by Rabbi Eddie Feinstein. He's at Valley Beth Shalom in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, and he was actually one of our teachers. He actually also did our wedding. We had 3 rabbis and 2 cantors at our wedding. You can ask my in-laws; they're on this screen somewhere. And that we had 3 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Rabbi Eddie Feinstein was one of our 3 rabbis because each of us had our own rabbi, and then we took the rabbi that was teaching us. So he wrote a book, Tough Questions Jews Ask. We skipped over the first one because it was about God. Is there a God? And since we hit that one about a month ago, we're going to start a series of tough questions. We will go past where the book is as well. In his book, we have, he starts off and then we're going to move away from the book, just the topic only, talking snakes, splitting seas. Okay. Is it true? If God talked to everyone in the Bible, why does God not talk to anyone today? So it does get into God a little as well. We just can't avoid it. So if you come to services, if you're a regular, and yeah, it's what do we got? Actually, I can't even see how many participants. Don't worry about it. But if you come every week, if you come every Shabbat, if you come every bar mitzvah, you probably hear this question a lot. It's the same question: is any of this true? And you probably, if you are a regular, know my answer. But maybe you're not a regular. Maybe you were sleeping. Maybe you need to hear it again. I remember when I moved here about 18 years ago. Uh, I took each rabbi out to lunch, and the last rabbi I could get out to lunch was the Poland Tzedek rabbi, Rabbi Yisrael Miller. Yeah, and so before he left for Canada, I think, so before he left, I took him out to lunch at the kosher restaurant, and I remember the first question he asked was, "Do I believe in Revelation? Do I believe in Mount Sinai?" Uh, it's interesting because that was right after the Eitz Chaim Chumash came out. The new we were the blue Hertz, and then we moved to the red Eitz Chaim Chumash. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but when the red Eitz Chaim Chumash came out, there was a article in the New York Times by Rabbi David Wolpe, who's now really famous, but back then he wasn't so famous. He was just getting there. I knew him beforehand. He was one of our teachers as well, and I worked in a library with him. So back then he was dating one of my classmates. But he wrote an article in the New York Times about the Eitz Chaim Chumash, and he kind of said in the New York Times Chumash, in the New York Times, that that revelation didn't happen. That he doesn't believe in Mount Sinai. And this, of course, there was a rebuttal by the Orthodox rabbis, and so Rabbi Yisrael Miller, he's a Orthodox rabbi of Poland Tzedek. He says to me, "Do I believe in Revelation?" And I said, "Yes." And then he could continue talking to me. I'm not so sure he would have been allowed to talk to me if not. That his congregation also couldn't count me in a minyan because he could count you in a minyan, but he couldn't count me in a minyan because you're a conservative Jew. I'm a conservative rabbi. I'm much worse because I'm misleading you. You're just misled. But I passed the test because I believe in Revelation. But he didn't continue asking me because I would have told him I believe in Revelation, but I don't believe it happened the way it says it happens in the Bible, in the Torah. So let's talk about it. So what about creation of the world, the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, the flood, Sodom and Gomorrah, 10 plagues, the splitting of the sea, bread from the sky, a talking donkey? I remember I was sitting, mom and dad, I don't know if you remember. Actually, I think this is one of the years off. Maybe we're having babies or something. We were having a Passover Seder, and there were some Mormons at the table because the person whose house we went to, would invite other people like we all do. And so it's the Greenbaum family and a lot of other families, and there's some Mormons sitting next to us. And they were so lucky they had Miles sitting next to them. And so Miles, if you know, I always pick on Miles, and I think he likes it. So Miles, throughout the whole Seder, is questioning the Mormon sitting next to him about all the stuff he learned from the Book of Mormon, right? The musical, the parody, the play. And so he's like, "Do you really believe this? Now, this Mormon is a Harvard graduate, professor, and I guess he's heard this before. So he was kind of ready for Miles. So as Miles is attacking him on his beliefs, every time Miles threw off an aliens or golden plates or New Jersey, he would come back with talking snakes, talking donkeys, split in the Red Sea. And our stuff doesn't sound as ridiculous to us because it's our stuff. And we've got other religions around us who seem to accept our Old Testament. However, other people have their own stuff too. And since it's not ours, we feel like, wow, what are they thinking? And yet he was ready for Miles because he could list every time Miles had something about Mormonism, he threw back something in the Bible. And do you really believe that? So I'm going to give you the punchline. I don't always do that in a class. And you're going to have a time I'm going to take you off my screen so I can see you. But the punchline is the difference between truth and fact. Okay? I believe there's a difference between biblical truths and biblical facts. And so I don't usually do this, but I'm going to give you the punchline to the question, is it true right now? right in the beginning, in the first 10 minutes. Former president of the International Rabbinical Assembly, Reuven Hammer, and I'm going to quote him, "Of course, the Torah is true, but not in the sense of providing us with provable scientific facts concerning the origins of the world and humankind. For that, I turn to scientists. If, however, I am seeking ethical truths and values by which to live by, oh wait, I have to switch pages here. There we go. Which to live and worthy beliefs concerning God and the way to relate to God and to my fellow human beings, then I turn to the Torah, the teachings of Moses." So if he's looking for facts, he goes to science, but if he's looking for truths, he goes to the Bible, to the Torah. The first time I ever heard the separation of biblical truths and facts was actually at a Pittsburgh Theological Seminary class, and it sounds like a joke, with a rabbi and a priest. So the rabbi and the priest are at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, and they're talking about the Bible and what we have in common. And it was the priest who said he believes in the truth of the Bible more than the facts of the Bible. And so personally, if you ask me, I believe in biblical truths, but not biblical facts. That's my belief as well. If one reason is there are other books and other stories that predate our Bible. There are other creation stories, other flood stories that are out there that predate our Bible. Creation. Let me give you a creation story. An archaeological discovery made in the 20th century shed light on our account of creation, revealing it for what it is, an abridged version of a Canaanite creation myth that predates our creation myth. Among the ruins of the ancient Canaanite city of Ugarit, tablets, so these are the Ugarit tablets, like our Dead Sea Scrolls, but before that, Ugarit tablets were found in a language very similar to Hebrew, recording the many myths believed by the city's inhabitants, including that creation began with the storm god Baal. We don't like Baal. The storm god Baal vanquishing the god of the sea, Yam. Yam is the word for sea in Hebrew, by the way. Vanquishing the god of the sea, Yam, and his sea monster, serpent, dragon helpers. And by the way, if you look closely at the beginning of our Bible, our Torah, there are sea monsters in it as well, but we always skip over that. I would put them under dinosaurs if this was a creation evolution class. What about the flood, right? You might have heard this one. You might not have known of the Ugarit tablets, but you probably heard of Gilgamesh if you came to any other rabbis' historical biblical talks. The flood, the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, dates back nearly 5,000 years, right? We always say, oh, we had it first. Hey, your mom and dad are here too. All right, so the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh dates back to nearly 5,000 years, so that's much earlier than our Bible, and is thought to be perhaps the oldest written tale on the planet. In it, there is an account of the great sage, Utnapishtim, I know I didn't pronounce that right, who is warned of an imminent flood to be unleashed by wrathful gods, with a little g and an s. He builds a vast circular shaped boat. So it's a circle, not like the one that's on the side of the freeway to Maryland. He builds a vast circular shaped boat, reinforced it with tar and pitch that carries his relatives, grains, and animals. After enduring days of storms, Utnapishtim, like Noah in Genesis, releases a bird in search of dry land. So, we weren't the first. And therefore, by the way, I don't spend a long time in my classes on Zoom. I like to have that feedback. Plus, we can't focus on a screen for 2 hours. Oh, wait, you want to see your mom and dad? Here, wait, I have to go. Here, I haven't minimized. There it goes. You can say hi to everyone. That's Rabbi Amy. You can wave to her. Here, I'll put you on gallery for a second. And there's your mom and dad. You see? Okay, there's dad. Okay. And now I'm going to go back to speaker view. Good. And now I'm going to go back to minimizing. So I am back in my piece of paper. All right. So knowing that our Noah story is not our Noah story, but shared stories from generations past. I do not waste my time looking for Mount Ararat. You can turn on History Channel, A&E, Discovery Channel, and every now and then I've seen a couple of them where they're looking for Mount Ararat, Noah's Ark. Let's go find Noah's Ark. According to an April 30th, 2010 article in National Geographic, all right, a team of evangelical Christian explorers claim they found the remains of Noah's Ark beneath snow and volcanic debris on Turkey, so it's in Turkey now, Mount Ararat. Great. I am not going to go visit. I'm not going to pay a Bedouin to see Mount Sinai either. $50, 50 shekels, you can see Mount Sinai. All right. But I do not waste my time looking for Mount Ararat because I don't need for the story to be factual. And let's go back to it. So truth versus fact. What does the Torah, and this is the question I always ask. I don't say, did it happen? We're going to go through the stories. I'll go quickly through some, and then you can ask some questions because I'm sure you might have some questions or you may attack me. That's okay. I'm used to it. When I read a story in the Bible, I don't say, were Adam and Eve two white people who spoke English and wore fig leaves? Or how did you fit all those animals on a boat? And just how big was that flood when the world for them was probably the size of New Jersey? What does the Torah or God teach me for each time? And I can learn something from a story without the story being factual. And so I believe in the truths over the facts. So I'm just going to hit the list I gave you in the beginning, and I'll just give you some morals of the story. I am sure that every single one of you could come up with your own morals. What did you learn from the story of Noah, the Sodom and Gomorrah? Well, you can tell me, or you can email me, or you can keep it to yourself, or go to rabbinical school. Creation of the world, right? God made the world. I'm okay with the Big Bang. I'm okay with evolution. You ask a scientist what started the Big Bang, they'll tell you it's a singularity. It's a scientific term, means it happened once, never happened again. We don't know what caused it. Fine, I say God. Creation of the world. But what do I learn? That the world was created in 6 days, seventh day, God rested, God made rest, but the world is incomplete. We are partners with God in the work of creation, the Garden of Eden. We can't exist in paradise. Just watch any old Star Trek. You can't put Captain Kirk in paradise. He will rebel. We need to struggle to exist. Adam and Eve. I think they were probably apes. But what do we learn? We all come from the same place. We all have the same Father. We all descend. We're all humans. We're all one world. The flood. Evil is bad. It's kind of a common theme through the Bible. Evil is bad, but we also learn that God will no longer destroy the earth. And this is the one. This is our last take, and we're going to have to work on it. Sodom and Gomorrah. Evil is bad again. And don't stand too close to a volcano or earthquake, or you turn to a pillar of salt. Okay, 10 plagues, skipping ahead. Splitting of the sea. If you've been to any of my sermons around these times of the year, I would tell you that lots of scientists say, oh, it all can explain naturally. There was an earthquake or a volcano, and that's messed up the Nile and turned it red from soot. And then the frogs jumped out. And so we have frogs, and then they died. So we have disease and lice and plagues, and now we're dropping dead. And so where is God? Yeah, I would say in the miracle is the timing, the miracle of the timing. It happened when we needed it. And even if you explain naturally that the sea split, at the time we needed it, the miracle's in the timing. I don't need to prove it yes or no. What do I learn from it? The beginning of our people. Bread from the sky. Scientifically, someone can say, well, it was some type of dew that fell from the sky that you could eat. Fine. You make do with nothing. All right. Talking donkeys. I don't know. The talking donkey moment. Even they had peyote even back then. I don't know. They have read the prophets. There's a lot of visions that probably didn't happen. They're talking to a lot of things, and they're lying on the floor naked for a year. Without eating. We don't take a lot of the Bible literally. And finally, if God talked to everyone in the Bible, why does God not talk to anyone today? I like this question. because the Bible, and this is a little Harold Kushner, the guy who wrote When Bad Things Happen to Good People, ish. And what we have here is this idea that God raised us. Okay, in the Bible, God raised us, and we are children in the crib, paradise, Garden of Eden. We are rebellious teenagers, the 40 years in the desert where God feeds us, but we still complain. And then we have prophets where God's talking us through prophets. And then finally, we're today and we are adults. And just like a parent can watch over us and love us and guide us, but we can talk to them as mature adults. And I believe that God, at this point, we don't need a middle man or woman. There were women prophets. We don't need a middle man or woman. We can talk to God face to face, even without a face, and that we don't need prophets. I think no more prophecy is actually a good thing. That prophets were something between us and God, and we don't need that. That each of us can take God with us wherever we go. We don't need to find some naked, bald guy and talk to them to talk to God. So, did God lie? Right? Is the Torah fake? Is it fake news? Why follow it? Why do it? Or is God a good teacher? I know I teach my kids right and from wrong, and sometimes, is it the truth? Yes. Is it fact? Not always. Oh, I remember little Johnny used to play in the street. Bad idea. Oh, little Bobby used to stick his finger in the light socket. Bad idea. I don't know Johnny or Bobby, but you teach your kids, don't do something. Maybe you tell a story. There are different ways of teaching. I don't think it's lying when you tell a story that has a moral, an ethic. And so now I'm going to enlarge my screen. And my question is, I'm going to leave it to you right now to ask questions. I'm going to go into gallery view. You can raise your hand in the participants view. You can also swing your hands back and forth. I can call on you and I can unmute you. And we'll try that for a moment. Now, Mark, I see you're unmuted. Is that on purpose?
That was up.
Okay, I'm unmuting you. Wait, now go ahead. Are you on purpose?
I'm on purpose, yes.
Okay, Mark, we can't see you, but we can hear you. So ask me or teach us, because Jews don't usually ask questions. We give answers. All right.
One of my favorite books I ever read was the Book of J. And my
first book of J?
Yeah, did you ever read it?
I guess not. I know the Book of Job. Okay.
I believe it was called the Book of J. And the premise behind the book, this is probably 20 years ago. The premise behind the book is that the Bible, our Bible, was written by a princess in a palace as a bedtime story for the children that she had. And that later on, the high priest grabbed hold of it. And that's why you've got the P version and the J version and all those kind of things. And that these were all stories that she had heard or read. I just think it's interesting because someone like that might very well have made use of stories that she had heard from other places.
Sure. That's all. Okay, so a couple things with what Mark just said. First of all, you mentioned JEP&D. When you go to conservative rabbi school, they'll tell you that the Torah has at least 4 authors, JEP&D, and they'll show you how there's certain themes through certain books, and if they call God Jehovah, J, or Elohim, E, or it's all that priestly, boring stuff, that's the P, or it's a whole repeating of the story, that's D, Deuteronomy. By the way, there's a great movie that I always teach my adult students. Have you ever seen, I don't know if you can just wave your hands. Have you ever seen the movie, and it was out for like a week, Invention of Lying with Ricky Gervais? Yeah, it's okay. There's Mark, and I see a couple chats coming up here. So the Invention of Lying, I'm just going to break down the story and ruin it for you, because if you haven't seen it in 20 years, the story goes that it looks just like this world, except no one can lie. It's an alternate reality where no one can lie. But he wakes up one morning and he has the ability to lie. So he's like, he can get women to, sleep with him because he can lie. Fine. And he gets, the good looking girl who sells insurance now. And, but it's, so his mother's dying and she's lying in the bed and she's dying. And she's like, I'm so scared. And the doctors are like, we can't do anything about it. Everyone tells the truth. And he says, don't worry, Mom. She was like, why not? He says, because there's a better place. And she goes, there is? And she's like, tell me about it. So he starts like, making it up. Like, oh, there's a nice place. You're going to see your dogs and your grandma. And the doctors behind him and the nurses start calling people in, go, listen to this, because no one lies. So it must be the truth. So they're like, yeah, and she's happy and she dies. And the doctors and nurses like, tell us more. Where did you learn this? There was an old white guy with a white beard, and he like starts making it up. They go, where did you, is it written down? He goes, yeah, it's a big book. So he goes home for like months and he's writing this book, and he comes out in his bathrobe with a long beard, and he's got these tablets, and he's like reading off to them The Invention of Lying, which of course, if you know Ricky Gervais, he's making fun of religion. It's a good attack on religion, but it's something we need. I always say that I need to believe in God. I believe in God, but I also need to believe in God. And so, yes, it could be bedtime stories that were passed down as well. By the way, and before I get to the next question, someone said, as we keep getting older and older in finding stuff in the Bible, I love the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's all online, by the way, now, 2,000-year-old documents with the stuff we're doing today. I find fascinating. And then they found a piece of pottery with a verse from the prophets from 2,500 years ago. We're getting closer to the original. And one day we'll find the original, and it'll be at the end, it'll say, signed by a guy named Bob, just made all the stuff up. Even if that were the case, I think religion would be fine. We wouldn't believe it. So here we go. JEDPD. Okay, you just got that answer. Okay, any good mythology teaches a lesson. Oh, that's Sarah. Very good. Any good mythology teaches a lesson. I see a hand raised. Mark, I am unmuting you, and I'm lowering your hand. Go ahead, Mark. Where are you? Let me see where you are.
Okay,
Oh, there you are.
I have two questions. I've always believed that the truth is absolute.
Yes. Okay, that's one.
And if truth is absolute, then there are different truths. You get different truths. So that's question number one. Could you comment on that?
Okay, so question number one. So I'm teaching a class at Duquesne a long time ago. And I'm at Duquesne, and I'm being like the rabbi teaching about Judaism. And I'm being all nice and ecumenical. And I'm saying, Judaism believes in a leap of action. You believe in a leap of faith. And I'm being all nice. And then someone raises their hand and goes, but Rabbi, what is who has the truth? What, I think she might have even said absolute truth. But she says, who has the truth? I said, well, of course I have the truth, but I'm not going to tell you that, because that would be a non-starter. So, and I just taught a class yesterday morning, and we were talking about truth. And I said that I would think that everyone thinks they have truth, every religion. I doubt there's any religions like, oh, they got it right. It's someone else has it right. Yeah. And I said this, and I think if you came to services, you would have heard this. I one time stopped a rabbinical school class because I wasn't paying attention. I'm not the best student. And I said, I stopped class and I said, what if we're wrong? And they go, what do you mean, what if we're wrong? I said, what if we're wrong? What if I die and instead of God, I don't know, Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha is waiting there? I'm like, oops, I guess we were wrong. And they didn't like this question in a rabbinical school, but I said, if our religion is based on faith, it's not based on scientific fact, it's based on faith. We have faith, we are right. Then I have to be open. Personally, I believe you have to be open to the idea you may be wrong. So when it comes to absolute truth, I'm not so sure we all I think you can believe without absolute truth. Do I think I'm right? Of course I do. I had a friend who was getting divorced the first time, and he wasn't very happy. And we're sitting at a bar, and he's drinking, and maybe I'm drinking. And he looks over to me, and he's like, Alex, years ago, he says, Alex, I think I'm better than all you. There was 5 of us. We went to high school together, just saw each other last week on Zoom. And he's like, Alex, I think I'm better than all you. I go, Jason, we all think we're better than each other. We just don't tell that to each other. No one should be walking around saying, I'm better than you, but you probably think you're right. a human being usually thinks they're right when they say something. And the other person, even if they disagree, they don't have to tell them they're wrong. So when it comes to absolute truth, sure, I think I'm right. I think Judaism makes sense. Not the Bible, but I think that my religion makes sense for me. But I don't know if it's absolute truth. I'm not so sure I believe in absolute truth. Is that a very long answer to your question on absolute truth?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Might not be the one you're looking for. Okay. Number two.
Number two, who says that God is not speaking to anyone today?
I don't. I actually say God speaks all the time. Are we listening? That's the way I read the Bible. By the way, let me use the Bible as my example. Is it true? There is a scene that usually you skip over because it's not one of the famous ones. Abraham and Sarah, and you got this handmaiden, Hagar, and she gives birth to Ishmael. And now, Sarah's mad, because none of our patriarchs and matriarchs are that great. And they kick Hagar and Ishmael, and they're dying in the wilderness. And God looks down and says, I'll save them. And so what does it say? It says, God opens Hagar's eyes, and lo and behold, there's a spring of water to save them. Yeah. And one way of looking at it is, oh, it's a miracle. God, poof, put a spring of water in front of them. Or number two, there was always a spring of water, but God helped them see that spring of water. That's, of course, how I read it. And I think that I do think God speaks to us all the time, but do we hear it? God helps us see. Sometimes we ignore it. I think God speaks to us. It's my long. I only have like 10 lines, but you hear them all the time after 18 years. God speaks but has no mouth. God hears but has no ears. God sees but has no eyes. Right? And so I think God speaks to us all the time. Mark, I do think God speaks to us. And we don't need a prophet to speak to God. I think it's an adult relationship. And that's why I can argue with God. I can be angry with God. God can be angry with me. And yet we still love each other. I know it's not fun to hear that as adults, but like an adult parent. Yeah. So I'm good with it. Okay. Next question. Anyone want to raise their hand virtually or wave back and forth? 332. I know we usually have like 45 minutes at the max for Zoom before our heads fall off. So Neil, I'm unmuting you. You're waving your hand. Hit me. We can hear you.
A couple questions I guess I have. So first, to me, I feel there are absolute facts, but the interpretation of them to me means that there aren't absolute truths.
Okay. Okay.
I think that there, my problem today is you can't say there's alternative facts. I think there can only be one set of facts.
Yes.
I do think that clearly how you interpret facts is, can lead to disagreements.
Yes.
I was also going to ask you, to me, a lot of Genesis seems to be a way of explaining kind of basic questions that everybody would want to, any religion would want to address. Where do people come from and things like that. And I've always had the impression a lot of this probably predates Genesis.
Definitely.
And has there ever been any, like you mentioned some of those, archaeology things.
Yeah.
Has there been, have they found more evidence to show how these stories might have been predated the Bible?
Definitely. There's a lot of stories out there that predate the Bible, and they are origin stories. What's interesting about our origin story is it doesn't really say why God made us. God's like, and let's make man in our image, but not like a why. It's, we're like, was God lonely? Did God, this becomes the philosophy side of Judaism. Philosophy side of Judaism becomes, why did God make people? Right? In other religions, they actually have reasons why the gods, usually it's an S, made the people. And it's, it's nothing we would like. But there's a lot of origin stories out there before our origin story. And then I'll go back to the factual thing, alternative. But there's a lot out there. Oh, even our creation story seems to have two creation stories. If you look closely, even in our own Bible, this is part of the issue about why do people who look at the Bible critically, and that doesn't mean biblical criticism doesn't mean criticizing the Bible. That doesn't mean like, oh, we don't like the shoes you're wearing with that dress. Biblical criticism is looking at it through a lens of history, literarily. Who was it written for? Who was it written by? When was it written? What was the author? I usually say the author of this, and my Wednesday class, I always say the author of Isaiah. I don't say Isaiah. I say the author of this part of Isaiah. So there's a lot of disagreements within the Torah. One place in the Torah says, you're responsible for yourself and only for yourself, and your children will not be punished for your actions. And then elsewhere in the same Torah, it says, your children and your children's children for 5 generations will be punished for your actions. Two opposite ideas. Well, in the creation story, right in the beginning, there are two creation stories. One says God makes a thing, a person, that's both male and female. God created them, and then God separated them. Right? It was like a one human thingy. And then the second story, that's the more famous story, is God makes a man, takes the rib out, makes a woman, and all the other good stuff you know. But there really are, for most people who look closely at the Bible, there are two creation stories. So, Neil, not only were they probably borrowed, we probably borrowed two stories and put them into one. And now, yes, as rabbis, we can get away with anything. We can just say, well, the second story is really just a commentary on the first story. That the second story is just elaborating. But we see throughout the Torah different stories. And back to your alternative facts and alternative truths. Yes, I believe that that everyone has their own truth. I don't believe there's alternative facts. That's why I believe that there is scientific fact, and that's kind of a new thing for me because I'm a science math kind of guy. The idea that you can actually argue a scientific fact is a new thing for me. I'm still trying to catch up on that one, Neil. So yes. Did I use that title? Yeah. Is the Torah fake news? That was kind of a cheating way to get you to sign on to this. Let's see. Anyone else want to ask a question? Raise a hand. I have a couple more people on this other screen here. Okay. Anyone sending me a chat? I'm going to do one more from this chat thing because I realized that, Alva, you sent it to me after I said it real quick, the JEP&D. Did I hit that answer? Or you want me to kind of say it again?
I need you to. I don't need you to go over.
You were catching up on it. Okay. So that's that. All right. So it is 3:38. I tell you, everything goes fast on Zoom. We are going to continue this series of tough questions. I can't tell you what the next one is because I haven't decided yet. Beth has a question. Beth is thank you. Someone sees Beth's hand raised. I don't see Beth. Let me find her. Beth. I don't see you. Let me see.
I had raised it in the camera.
Thank you, Beth. But we can hear you. Hit us with a question. Or a Jewish question, which is an answer.
It really wasn't a question, but it's an observation in that even in our explanations of the Torah, we have stories because that's what humans relate to and remember. They remember stories. Yeah. And the more vivid they are, the better it is. Yeah. And some of the commonality of our stories comes from, I believe, common occurrences among all peoples, that there's so much representation. But, if we look at all the explanations of the rabbis, they all tell stories.
Yeah.
That's not an accident.
The Talmud is 10,000 pages long. There's very little you learn. I mean, there's a lot of stories in it. And by the way, when I teach, if we get into homosexuality or some, interesting topic, the way I always start off with is how do you look at the Bible? The Bible, and I'm teaching a Catholic school this topic that it's story, law, story, law, and it's a little confusing, right? It just all of a sudden you got a bunch of laws, and then there's a bunch of stories, and back to our story. And the way a few of us, I got this from Rabbi Bradley Artson, and back all my teachers in California. I think he's the dean still of the UJ or whatever they call it now, a Jew, AJU. He said that, and I use his tshuva, he looks at the Torah as a complete document, and that the stories are referring to the laws, Beth, and the laws are referring to the stories. It's one thing to say, here's a law, do not murder. But then we have the story of Cain and Abel that brings that to life. And so I'm always looking for the story that refers to the law or the law that refers to the story, because a good teacher, and that's how I ended the document was, is God lying or is God a good teacher? Or Bob. But I do believe that the stories are another way of teaching. And these are stories that are passed down and stories we can relate to as well. Any other ones see anyone other hands up? It's 3:40. I plan on every Thursday doing some tough question. It might move to 12. We just couldn't do it because I had a rabbi meeting at 12, and all the rabbis in the city got together and complained about the future, and except for a few of us. And so it'd probably be a 12 next week because it's the middle of the day, and it also fits the Christian Jewish dialogue, so that if I do it on Thursdays when it hits Christian Jewish dialogue, it'll be a tough question with Reverend Jason. But I want to thank you for taking 41 minutes out of your day. And it feels longer. That's what you learn in rabbinical school, how to make a minute feel like 5 minutes. But I thank you for joining us today. I'm going to unmute you so you can say anything you want out loud. Don't forget, thank you, Andy, for the fake news button. That looks like the Staples button. And and I'm going to unmute you all now and thank you out loud. And it might get loud if someone out of the whole group forgot to turn off their microphone or something. So here we go. Everyone is unmuted. To quote Nahora Hari, we say things, tell stories, and then believe them. Beautiful,
Thank you,
Sarah.
Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Who says that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Whoever's saying these things, these nice things, thank you. Yep. There's a lot of people, a lot of faces there. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, you got a Bible study at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Thank you. That's another class. Yoga's tomorrow. Friday and Saturday, we have services. Sunday, we have something else, I'm sure. All right, thank you. Watch the emails. Thank you for joining us. Yasher Koach to Elva. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is wonderful. Okay. And we do find that if we just leave you on, it gets uncomfortable. So I will start muting and turning it off because some people just don't know how to say goodbye, like me. All right. So here it goes. I'm muting. Nice to see you, Gail and Merv. Okay. Okay. Georgia, Heidi. Okay. Mom and Dad. Yeah, that's very nice. Amy says hi. She's doing the laundry. Okay. Here it goes. Mute.
I turn it off.
All right.
Everyone. See you next time.